The single leg Romanian deadlift is one of my favorite ways to learn how to hip hinge. Reason being, if you can do this, you're going to be able to do a good morning, a kettlebell swing, conventional deadlift, anything that involves moving through the hips essentially, just from this exercise. So before we get started in this, you probably want to have a good idea of breathing and bracing, so hopefully you've watched the other videos about that. Otherwise, as well, we need to consider the upper body and what's happening there. I'll go through that a little bit as we go through. But essentially a single leg good morning looks like this. Boom. And coming up. Now there's many different ways to teach and learn this, but I find the simplest way, and this is the way that kind of makes a bit more sense when you think of a hip hinge, is if I think about leading with this back leg. So if I take this back leg back, there's going to be a point where I can no longer go further back, or I can't lift this back leg any higher unless I allow my upper body to bow forward. And this is a very natural movement because as this leg goes back, it's physically pushing the hip forward, or it's tilting the hip. So all I want you to think about is with this back leg, you're going to guide the movement. So I'm just going to keep going back and then naturally bowing forward as I feel I need to. Nice and slow. And you should be able to see that the only place that I'm articulating or moving from is this hip. So my back is staying nice and straight, my arms aren't moving. Simply rotating that hip over the femur. And then all we're going to do is think about squeezing hamstring and butt to pull ourselves back up to standing. Now the only thing I will say in terms of position wise here is there's a couple of ways to do it, right? I could keep my leg locked like this and turn this more into like a yoga warrior 3 or something like that. But then be mindful that you're just going to load the hamstrings a lot, and it might be a little bit more neural, especially if you're tight, right? And you might not be able to get range. But if I want to load the glutes up as well and transfer a little bit more to like a conventional deadlift, for example, then what I'm going to want to do is actually soften this front knee a little bit. Whoop. And as I do, I'm going to think about pushing this hip back. So now all of a sudden, I'm getting deep into this hip because these glutes are on stretch, and I can actually utilize these muscle groups a little bit more to pull myself back up to standing. So think soften the standing leg as the back leg goes high and up. Now, if I'm holding weights, obviously breathe and brace, but I'm also thinking shoulders down into the back pocket to get my lats on, and then the movement stays the same. Now there's so many different ways you can load this up, and so many different ways you can execute this in terms of tempo, how you load it up. Is it one weight? On which side? Is it two weights? What kind of weights are you holding, kind of thing. But the main thing that I want you to think about, no matter which tool you're using, is that this back leg is going to guide you down. Like this. So nice and slow. Boom. And once you understand that, and how to actually move through the hips, and you can feel this exercise in your butt and back of the legs, safe to say you probably understand how to hip hinge.